Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So you want me to just answer the same questions?
Yeah. So we're excited, by the way. I need to do a little setup here. Mike is the man behind the camera on so much of what you see in Charlotte, from Pitch Breakfast to other virtual events. If you were on the Pitch the Pivot event this morning, it was a great event. Mike was the man behind the scenes. We are letting the cameraman, the technical guy, come out in front of the camera. This is like, what's the dude on College Game Day who used to be behind the scenes?
The Buddha? Is that what they call him? The Buddha?
I don't know, God. Everyone probably knows what I mean. Anyways, so this is Mike D'Avery. All right,
It's
Mike
fine.
D'Avery. So tell me what you do, Mike.
Yeah, so I'm the owner of Charlotte Information Strategist. We help businesses tell their story, but I mean, most likely you've seen me behind a camera at all these different pitch events, Venture 135, FinTech Generations, usually not in front of the camera, except for the YouTube show that my 8-year-old daughter and I have, where we review things.
You gotta post that link in the chat.
We will, okay. Yeah, we're gonna review Onward later today. But yeah, and so usually behind the camera, Dan asked me if I wanted to kind of help out, host some of this conversation, make sure that trolls aren't being let in as well, and thought, hey, yeah, what better way to put some of these cameras to use while I'm stuck inside.
Nice, well done. All right, well, let me take the spotlight off you for a second. So I am going to actually, I'll remind people right here before I take the spotlight. For everyone, if you want to look at the bottom of your screen, here's my tutorial 101. I think almost everyone knows Zoom now, but actually the controls may flip up to the top if you're in full screen mode. But there is oops. All right, I'm not sure how to go back on that one. But there are, up the top of the screen, or the bottom of the screen, there's a mute, there's a show video that you can turn your video on and off, so please turn it on if you can. There's also a mute. We're gonna let everyone kind of mute and unmute for themselves right now. We may have to go to the point where we do a mute all and then just call on you, but we're gonna see if everyone can be well. But that's how those details would work. There's also 2 boxes you need to know. There's a button that says, and sometimes if you're condensed, there's a more button with 3 dots, so it might be under that. But there's a participant button where you can see everyone who's in the room. That's really important because we're going to need people to raise their hand if they want to talk, and that's how we're going to do breakout rooms later on. So please make sure you have that participant box open. So if you are all right there in the participant box, you'll see that when I click this little yes button, you see a little green yes pop up next to my name and go away, a little red no button. We're going to use those later on. And so there is actually one for, there was a raise hand and maybe clap. There's a clap one. There's a whole bunch of icons that you can use in there. So that's how we're going to get people to recognize that they need to show off their puppy. So that's important. If you brought your puppy, really important you know how to raise your hand so that we can call on you. Caitlin's already ready to go. And so make sure that we do that. And then also there is a chat box. So if you open the chat, there's a group chat. You'll notice it defaults to everyone. So just be a little careful because if you type something in there, that's going to go out to everybody. And you can also privately chat one-on-one with someone. So that's what we kind of want to do. On the screen are the highlights for how you can potentially win your $50 gift card, although I'm sure that's not why everyone's doing this. Everyone loves their puppy and has to show off their pet. Somebody asked if we're going to discriminate against cats. No, cats are allowed. They're just not going to win. Goldfish, gerbils, whatever, you can show whatever you want. I can't see something beating out the puppies, but we'll see. And Todd Buelow, who's our Keg-Side chat speaker later and guest, has joined. He asked if he could bring his cats into this. We'll see if he has the chutzpah to set up the cats against the dogs. I'm not sure that'll happen, but we'll see. So if you can, go ahead and go into the participant box and raise your hand if you have a pet you want to show off. There are the ground rules: 30 seconds to introduce yourself or introduce your pet, name, breed, age, favorite story about them, funniest thing your pet has done. And Keith and Mike and I are going to be the judges. So what we're going to do behind the scenes, we're going to go and pick our top 4. And then we're going to do a poll at the end, kind of like the final 4, and let the crowd vote on who the favorites are. And so I think we have a couple people who have raised their hands. I see John first. So John, if you want to unmute, and I'll try and put the spotlight on you, and we'll find you. So John, take it away.
Okay, I'm gonna actually have my daughter introduce her. Come here, son. Come here.
And I'm going to take the
screen
share off so you can all see a wider shot here. Okay, go for it.
Okay, this is Honey. She's our 1-year-old golden doodle. And what does she know how to do? Does she know how to count?
Yeah, she knows how to count.
What's 1 plus 1? 2. And then she also can be a football referee. She knows when they score a touchdown.
Touchdown.
So that's about it. She's just she smells really good. She's hypoallergenic, and she's dressed up as Snow White today.
So, oh, I love the costume.
That's it. Thanks, guys.
A strong entry. What was her name again? What was your dog's name again, John? I think he was back on mute. All right, we'll have to get John's pet's name here in a second. All right. So what was the pet's name?
Her name is Honey.
Honey. All right. Good. Got to send her back on mute, John. And then is it Sherelle Pinkney? You want to go next?
It's Sherelle. Hi, everyone. I want to introduce my puppy, Thor. He is 6 weeks old. He is a boxer mix. I just got him a couple weeks ago. And the cutest thing that he has done so far is he can't actually climb up and down the stairs. So he sits at the bottom and he cries until I come to pick him up. And then he kisses all over me.
That is awesome. All right, so that was Thor, right?
Thor, yes.
All right, cool. And let's see. So let's see if we can go to Kat next. Kat, why don't you unmute yourself?
Okay, hi. Okay, come here, girl. This is, okay, come on, up. Come on, come on. This is Hyatt Valentine. I'm gonna have to make her perform. So she is 11 years old. Say hey. She's some sort of mutt. I'm guessing we think it's border collie. This isn't going as well as I thought it was gonna go. So something funny that she does is anytime there is a dog or any sort of animal, anything on TV, and it's now become also animated animals, she barks and goes crazy and tries to get to the TV thinking that they're real. And one thing that I love that she does is she's a herding dog. So she herds toddlers at my house and keeps people, keeps people in line.
That is awesome. And so that is Hyatt. Okay. All right. So Mary Allison, we will have you go next.
Hello, can you see us?
Yeah, perfect.
All right, so this is Nigel. Nigel, look over here. Nigel is an English Springer Spaniel. He's about 1.5 years old. If you guys can see, he also needs a haircut like many of us whose salons have been closed recently. So he's got some nice shag going on. He's really honing his skills on playing a lot of fetch since I've been working from home, many walks a day. He's almost caught a couple squirrels this week. So he's, he's really thriving in the social distancing world, but yeah.
Nigel, I like it. That's the most sophisticated name we've had so far. I like it.
Yes, if we have any race car driver fans in the house, he is named after Nigel Mansell, who is an old British Formula One driver.
Oh, I love the history. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. If you're just joining and you have a pet you want to share, raise your hand in the participant chat bot. Just raise it. I think William McGee will have you go next. William McGuire.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Awesome.
Daughter Mariah, and she's going to show off Carolina. Come on, come here. Our black lab puppy may show up.
Oh.
So Carolina was a gift to my wife for her wedding present. The reason she's named Carolina, she also normally wears the red collars because I went to state. That was kind of a battle against her dad that went to UNC. So we got a split household. So she wanted me to say, I love you, Carolina, even though I went to the Wolfpack. You know.
I love it. That is absolutely fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing. All right, so that is Carolina. Okay. All right, so next, let's see, Debbie Ortega. Debbie.
Hello, everyone. I'm Debbie with the Latin Chamber of Commerce, and I want to flip my screen here. Let's see.
Yeah.
This is my doggie. Her name is Safi. She's been with
what
me.
was it?
Safi. And she's been with me for about a year. She's a rescue. I got her from the local animal shelter. My favorite story is that when I got her, she had heartworms, and now 6 months later, she is heartworm free.
All right. How do you spell her name? I want to make sure I get that right.
It's Z-A-F-I.
Is that all right? I gotta ask a stupid question. Is that Spanish for something? Is that short for something?
It is. It is short for Saphira, which means sapphire in Spanish.
I like it. So it's a foreign language and a nickname. That's strong.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Lori Frederick, let's have you go next, please. If you could unmute.
All right. Hello, everybody. I have to be mobile for a minute. So this, hopefully you can see.
Oh, yeah.
Is Sarah. She's a Great Dane. She's lounging on my outdoor furniture that was not supposed to be hers, but she took it over time. And she weighs 130 pounds, and her name is, she's named after a little town in Costa Rica called Nasara. So she is super comfortable and not moving. So.
Wait,
All right. Oh, Bruce, we don't want to screen share quite yet, though.
Gotcha. I'm just playing around.
Yeah, unfortunately, it takes over the screen when you do that. So
My bad.
that's all right. That's all right. We'll keep going. We got it. See, all our good presenters are getting ready. So let me see if I can do this. There we go.
Oh,
All right. All right, so let's go back. We did Debbie. Rob Cummings. Rob, could you unmute, please?
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Hey, Dan, can you give me the ability to share my screen too? I promise I won't do what we did.
All right, hold on. I'm going to trust you. Hold on. Give me 1 second. All right, you can now share your screen.
Okay, well, first let me introduce Newton, who's a French bulldog here. So Newton is, for Todd's question he sent to me, is named after our now unemployed quarterback. And just to prove this, let's see here. Here he is on game day, wearing the Gatorade towel, and of course watching the Panthers game.
Oh, we can't see anything though.
Oh, you can't? Hold on. Well, how do I share my screen? Oh, here it is. Here it is.
Hold on.
There we go.
There's a lot of buildup.
All right.
Ah, I like it.
All right, here we go. Little Gatorade towel. And of course, watching the game here.
That is very strong. All right, I like that.
All right, but I have one story.
All right.
So can I stop sharing my screen here?
Yeah.
So my story is that I did run into the Cam Newton on the street after a Charlotte Angel Fund meeting earlier this season. And he was riding his thing, and he had his, he had the thing on his leg. And I told him, I said, Cam, we really need you back. We're looking forward to it. And I went as far as saying, and I even named my dog after you. And as I walked away, I said to myself, did I really just tell him that?
That is fantastic. All right. So sorry, I missed the whole name. What was your dog's name? One more time.
Newton.
Okay, Newton. That's right. How can I forget that, right? All right, Nat Clarkson, why don't you unmute and you can go next.
All right. So this is, let's make sure Albus here.
All right. Named after the wizard. All right, we can't hear you. We can't hear you anymore, Nat.
Nat, you're on mute.
Oh, there you
Sorry
go.
about that. Yeah, I was trying to hold the dog and hit multiple buttons. So,
So named after the wizard, I assume?
yeah, named after the wizard. Supposedly he's a golden doodle, though I'm not entirely sure about that because poodles are smart and retrievers bring things back. He brings things closer. So he's part brown nearer, we think. What else is he? A ginger retainer, we think, and part shoe hound, because if there's a shoe around, we'll be around for long. He usually likes right shoes only.
Nice.
So he'll keep the lefts for you, but the rights are gone.
Now, can you put it back on the screen really quickly?
If I can find him, yeah, there he is over there.
Oh, where'd he go? Yeah. Look at that pose.
All right. Thank you, Nat, for sharing. Bill Freeman, can you go next? You can unmute yourself.
Yeah. I've got a question, Dan. How do you feel about a dog that only likes things on the right?
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good, Keith. Sorry, Bill Freeman, you're up.
So I don't have a dog, but I do have this beautiful looking succulent who I have just named Jerry because apparently we're naming things. So this is Jerry. He's been alive for a while. I don't do anything.
I don't think Jerry's got a strong shot, I got to tell you.
Jerry's hanging out, so it's great.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for sharing that. It looks like Todd Buelow is up. What is Todd going to share with us?
I have a pit bull. His name is Sir Winston Boots Buelow the First. He's a mix between a pit bull and a cat.
Now, there you go. And so, funniest story.
The funniest story of Winston, he's just annoying in general, and I would never get a cat, but cats are beautiful animals. He struggles with always, whenever I have a call, with just showing up and walking in front of the camera constantly. and then he hides the rest of the day, but he's a good cat.
Oh my goodness. All right, well, in a little bit of a conflict of interest story, we do have Mike has somebody who wants to show. So Mike, take the floor.
All right, so he's been crying because he doesn't want to deal with this at all. So that's Mr. Norwal. Yes, his full name is Mr. Norwal. It's from Elf, if you've ever seen the movie Elf. He talks in that voice, boy, buddy. He's 13 years old. He's been around forever. We have 2 kids, and so he's gotten very, very fat over the years with all the food that they drop. So probably my favorite story is that my wife and the kids went away with the dog one weekend, and I'm used to dropping food on the floor and him eating it. And I made a sandwich. I dropped a slice of ham. A day later, I came back to the kitchen. The ham was still there, and I thought, oh, I don't have a dog to clean up after me. So that's his job around here, is to clean up all the food that is dropped.
Very nice. That is a strong entry. And then, did we already do John Butler? Did I call on John? I don't think so. Did I?
Not yet.
All right, there you go. Who do you got, John?
My name's John Butler, and I have with me Ray, and it's R-E-Y. Our family went through a Star Wars kind of deal, and so we had a front office, back office. We call the back office Jakku. And this is Ray from the female Star Wars character. And Ray went with us to Thailand, and she really was impressed with everything she saw there. And now when she wants something, she only does like a Buddha pose. Buddha, see, Buddha, Buddha, Ray, Buddha, Buddha.
Oh, we're doing tricks. Uh-oh, look out.
So That's Ray.
That is very strong. Well, thank you for sharing. All right. So what we're going to try and do now, if we can logistically pull this off, I think we have everyone who raised their hand, which is great. Bill Freeman has, or I mean, it's just been a thumbs up. No, you already had a thumbs up. You're already on. All right, terrific. So let me do this. I'm going to, we're going to take a second now where Mike and Keith and I are going to chat on our Slack to come up with a couple of finalists for us. And I'm going to turn the floor over for just a minute on to one of our guests, James from Microsoft, who's here. And I saw you were in the room, and I made you a co-host, James. So you should be able to unmute, and you should be able to share your screen. You may know Microsoft has a big presence here in Charlotte. They're a good partner of ours at QC FinTech, the program. And they've also made Microsoft Teams free, I think, for 6 months. So as you all are looking at interesting resources, we wanted to give James an opportunity just for a minute or two to talk about Microsoft Teams. So I'm going to let him do that. And then Mike and Keith are going to come back, and then we're going to vote for the winner. So James, are you there?
I am. Can you hear and see me?
We can. And then I need to, let's see if I can spotlight you here.
Let's see. I'm going to share a screen here, actually, so I'm not sure the spotlight will make a huge difference.
It won't either way. Yeah, but you share screen.
Okay, cool. Let me throw this up.
All right, we see you.
All right, great. Thanks, Dan. So I will try to kill as much time as you need me to. Let me know when you're ready to have the floor back. Like Dan said, I wanted to climb on. I know that there are a lot of different platforms out there. If you're still looking for a way to do collaboration within your team in this work from home time, I realize it's a couple of weeks later than probably when you needed this information, but Skype and Teams are both available for free. Skype is more of the consumer product. So if you're looking for meetings within the friends that maybe aren't time limited to 40 minutes or things like that, Skype.com has a Meet Now feature that's super easy. And if you create a Meet Now meeting, it doesn't require an account. It doesn't require a download. It works in the browser. It's as easy as just hitting, Skype.com, go to the products and choose Meet Now and say, create a free meeting. And it gives you a URL that you then use just to spin that up or to start that call. It's persistent. You can use that URL over and over. You can record and it will hold the recordings for 30 days. There's a fair amount of functionality there. Easy to use, free. We've also mentioned Teams. If you're not familiar with Teams, it's a broad collaboration platform. It's similar to a lot of the other platforms that are out there. This is my Teams. I won't click into this too much, but you can kind of see it's a chat platform. It's a voice and video calling platform. I've got the ability to persist information. So for example, this is our Teams channel for some of the things we do at work. We've got file shares. We can share, do multi-editing on files, OneNotes, wikis. We've got the plugin for ADO. So we've got our backlog in Azure DevOps in our Teams channel. Takes it a second to load that. Demo fail maybe. Oh, there we go. There's our backlog. In Azure DevOps, I've got access to my calendar. Getting all these toasts in the waiting room. Anyways, calendar, calling, file share. If you're interested in trying Teams out, like Dan said, it's free for 6 months to try to help businesses cope with the COVID-19. If you go to products.office.com/Teams, you should get into this screen here. You can say I'm looking for working remotely for Teams. There is a difference in the licensing, whether it's an educational versus a business. But if you've got a business that you're trying to run and you're looking for a collaboration platform for your remote workers, this would be something worth checking out. If you're doing it for distance learning, it's just a different SKU. I believe that the offer is an O365, I forget what SKU it is, but there's basically a basic SKU that for enterprise we're making available for 6 months.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. I love the fact that we're seeing so many companies step up and really take the opportunity to try and help the community in whatever way they can. And so thank you really much, very much for sharing that. We appreciate it. I hope you all will take advantage of that opportunity. So we are now going to go and I'm going to post in the chat our final four, and there's no contesting the judges. We are the final arbiters of cuteness when it comes to the pets. So our four finalists are Honey, Nigel, Zafi, and Carolina. And so I might, what I'm going to do, because you couldn't do a polling really quickly, if you go into the participant buttons, you'll notice that there are 4 buttons in the participant box. Yes, no, go slower, go faster. So if you go to the participant box, there's 4 buttons. Yes, no, go slower, go faster. So I want you to pick based on the 4 that we, in the order that they were listed there. Honey equals, let me see if I can do this. Honey equals yes. And then Nigel equals no. This is for voting, folks. And then Zafi equals go slower. And Carolina, there's already contesting going on in the chat. Carolina equals go faster. Can we see them again? Gosh, I don't know if we can see them again. That might be more than we can handle on our logistics call. So let's see.
Real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
You show the.
Do it real quick. You want to go, Rob?
No. Just highlight the 4 people real quick.
I don't remember who they are. That's the hard part. All right, let's see if we can do this without causing catastrophe. You were the owner of Honey. First one? Yeah, if you were the owner of Honey, go ahead and share your screen again here and unmute. Oh, there we go. There's Honey. Fantastic.
There we go.
And now, if you see the owner of Nigel, where's the owner of, and that would be yes. If you like that one, that's the yes button. The owner of Nigel, who's next?
Here, Mary Allison. Nigel back.
The sophisticated dog. I like it. Yes, indeed. All right. So if you like Nigel, it's the no button, the red no button. And then Zafi. Who is the owner of Zafi?
Over here.
Oh, all right. So let's see again. Can we see?
Yes, Zafi.
Oh, that's a cute one. That's a tough competitor. That would be the go slower button. And then Carolina, that I spelled wrong. Carolina, where's the owner of Carolina?
Right here.
That's, there we go.
North Carolina State University dog.
So that would be the go faster button. It looks like a dead heat between our first 2 contenders. More votes are coming in. Oh, this is going to be tight. So it looks like people are figuring out how to use that participant button. It's a dead heat. Look at that. 13-13. Actually, I can see the count. You may not be able to see that. 13-14. Last call on voting. Go to the participant box and click on yes, no, go slower, or go faster.
Vote for Honey.
A little last minute plug. And it is a, I'm gonna call this a tie. It is close enough. We're gonna call a tie. 2 first place winners, Honey and Nigel, both win first place in our first ever Packard Place Public House that we made.
Thank you.
Nigel wants to take a nap, but he says thank you.
Oh,
that is awesome.
Congrats, Mary.
Thank you. Congrats, Honey.
Congrats, Honey.
I love it. I love it. All right. Well, if you guys, if everyone could go back on mute, that'd be great. I'm going to clear all the hand signals. And we're going to get on to a little more serious business, but that was a fantastic treat. We need a little levity in all the seriousness, the health stuff, the business stuff going on. Having a little fun and the ability to do that is really great. And we appreciate you all taking time to bring your pets and do that. And also for the 2 winners, if you could direct message me or Jasmine in the chat box, just to make sure we know how to reach you, like an email or something. Actually, we probably get it off the attendee list, but just make sure we know where to send your gift card. It is a $50 gift card to Not Just Coffee. Part of the reason we're doing that is that we wanted to support local, right? You know, for a lot of these local restaurants and shops, you've all read the stories, you know what's going on, and the ability to, in some small way, tip the hat to them. If you have the ability to go out and buy gift cards to your favorite restaurant to give them some cash now, you know, please go do that. If you're doing takeout still, the opportunity to tip the people would be really great, because we need folks to be able to do that and be able to to support the local. So we're thrilled and happy to be able to do that. So thank you for a little bit of fun. Now, to move on to a little bit more of what we want to talk about, let me see if I can get my screen sharing going here again. Give me 1 second. So, all right, I think you can all see that now. And then, we also are going to do a weekly kind of pulse survey on kind of what's going on in the area. So we wanted to start, if we can, with a little bit of kind of who's here. So I'm going to launch a poll. Hopefully I'm going to launch a poll. If everyone sees the poll, give me a thumbs up or go ahead and start answering the question. You know what, Call, you see a poll out there? No one's seeing a poll yet. All right, I'm gonna try this one more time. Actually, maybe I need to stop sharing screen to do this.
Dan, there's a poll down in the polls. I've got it left to the share screen. Is that something that only a presenter would see?
Yeah, it's only, yeah, so it is. But let me relaunch this here. Hold on 1 second. Can anyone see a poll there yet?
Yeah, it's up there now.
Fantastic. All right, I'll give you a minute to take all that. It's a weird thing with the poll system on Zoom is the host, you can't see whether it's been served up or not. It's really bizarre. If you don't mind all taking a few quick seconds to fill that out. We want to get a little background on the demographics of kind of who's here and the background. This poll, I should say, is anonymous because we're asking questions about company. So this is an anonymous poll. We will not see the results by person. We'll just see the aggregate results. But if you could do that, it's helpful to kind of know who's in the room tonight. And then we'll give that a second to kind of keep going. It looks like about 40% of the people have done the poll. So if you all get a chance to go do the poll, that would be great.
Hey, Dan, can you remove me as an admin? It doesn't let me vote.
Oh, yeah, you want to be able to vote.
In your circle.
All right, I think I've done that.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll do the same for James, because I think he's done. All right. All right, so we'll give it, we're about 45% voted. So there's about 65 people in here. So if we could get everyone to vote or answer the poll, that'd be great. We'll give you all just a minute or two more. We're gonna put up a slide that will show this next, but just to explain what we're doing next for the public house, we're gonna start talking about the CARES Act, the resources available for entrepreneurs, yeah, anyone who's pre-revenue would be zero revenue. So if you're pre-revenue, it's zero. We're gonna start talking about some CARES Act. So somebody said they're clicking on submit, but nothing's happening. I hope it's going in. We're about 55%. All right, so I'm gonna wrap up the poll here in about 10 seconds, if you haven't finished, just so we can see who we're here, and then we're gonna do one more. What we're gonna do though is talk about the CARES Act resources, do a little bit in the main room, and then we're gonna try, we'll see how this works. We're gonna try going into breakout rooms so that we can have smaller discussions, because 70 people is a little bit hard to have a conversation with in the large group room. So let me end that, and I'll be able to share the results. So in case you were curious kind of who's here, looks like a lot of ecosystem partners, some funders, about 40% entrepreneurs, some companies across the revenue spectrum, about 50% of the people not describing themselves as an entrepreneur, which is okay. And then some companies, again, across the spectrum, but a lot of companies, not surprisingly, kind of in that early phase. And the funding level is kind of indicative of that as well. And so that is kind of really helpful. I want to do, if you bear with me, I want to do one more, because I want to do this before we get into talking about the COVID-19 responses. I want to make sure that we see this. So I'm going to try and launch another poll here if you're ready. And this one is about COVID-19 responses. We want to see kind of where you're feeling as entrepreneurs and what you've already done. We're going to have a loose partnership with Charlotte, on this, is that we're going to take the results from tonight And each week we are going to post them, or Charlotte Eno is going to write a blog post or a couple snippets about it. So each week we're going to try and take a survey and talk about where people are at and how they're feeling and where they think this is all going. So we can get a feel for how the community is doing. This was a little bit longer, I know. This is 6 questions, so this will probably take a couple minutes to reply to. But if you want to take that time, please go ahead and do that. I think I can go ahead and screen share while I do that without messing up the poll. We're going to see if I can make this happen. So hopefully you can still all see the poll. I think the poll box is still up, which is great. And what we're going to do is, like I said, in this weekly pulse survey, we're going to do every week here and then give everyone the opportunity to see the results in Charlotte Eno as we post that. So keep doing that. I'm going to try and, there we go, start talking about some of the people we have here. We're not going to go into breakout rooms yet. We're going to do a little bit of an overview first, but I wanted to let you know who's all here, which is David Stewart, who's a partner at Bradley. You'll notice there's a couple folks from Bradley here, Bradley Law Firm, which is great to see. They're a great partner of ours and have been helpful bringing a number of people to the party today. So after we do the big group session, we're going to have, I think, 6 breakout rooms. Room number 1 is going to be on list, right? Heard might be coming, 200 billion plus more in the PPP, maybe some other things coming, legislative questions and updates. David, if you're, well, actually, we'll have everyone introduce themselves in just a second, so I'm going to take that back. But if you're one of our co-hosts here, if you could, sorry, if you are one of our, oh, my screen's messing up. If you're one of our co-hosts, the opportunity to talk about this. Let me see if I can get this back. I have a really sensitive mouse, I guess. There we go. Breakout room 2. Brian Pope, Managing Director, Bearings. Paul Foley, who's partner and chair at Ackerman Law Firm. Brandon Shelton, a lot of you know Brandon, is partner and founder of Task Force X, a local venture capital firm. That has been great about kind of getting together with his companies, collecting information. That breakout room 2 is going to be venture funded companies. What do founders and investors need to know, specifically as it relates to equity funded businesses versus just businesses in general. If you are still doing the poll, the poll did close, so I will share the results in a second. And then if I can get my mouse to work here. Is really sensitive. I'm gonna stop going into full share mode here. Give me 1 second, because that is just being a little too sensitive for me. Sorry about that little hiccup, everybody. But I don't think it likes being in presentation mode when I'm sharing the screen. So I'm going to go back, try that one more time. And I'm just going to present it in this mode. So you can all see it, because that was just really starting to get annoying trying to do that in full screen mode. So the second one is going to be about with funders and how it's interacting with funders, particularly that breakout room 3 is going to be with the CARES Act kind of 401. A lot of us have had the opportunity to already talk about what's going on, and they don't need the basic conversation. They want a much more advanced conversation, more sophisticated issues. They've already read a bunch of stuff. They already have a bunch of the answers. There's kind of a more sophisticated conversation. Breakout room 4 is going to be specific to 401k loans, the withdrawals and IRAs. Whether you need that on a personal side, because you have some personal issues, whether you need it potentially on the business side as a way of kind of funding the company, just to know that that's kind of out there as an option. So, all right, everyone can read this. This is good. Thank you for that feedback, everybody. And then the last 2 breakout rooms are going to be payroll tax deferments. Bruce from Bradley, there's a whole bunch of payroll issues. If you have employees where you can defer taxes on some of that. We're going to have a discussion on that. That's a specific meaty enough topic that we wanted to have a conversation just on that. And the last one.
Speak to tax credits as well as deferrals. Tax
Credits as well. Thank you, Bruce. And so there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. I am not a tax expert. That's why we love our tax experts. So thank you for being here for that, Bruce. And then breakout room 6 is going to be self-employed and contractors. There's parts of the CARES Act, which you probably realize are part of the PPP, and unemployment even that can be managed if you're self-employed or contractors. We're going to let that group gather and kind of facilitate a conversation around that. Okay, so we're not going to do the breakout rooms quite yet, as I mentioned, but I did want to actually share kind of a quick overview on the act. I'm going to try and do this, see if I can share this. And for all of our potential, or for all of our breakout folks, if you also want to chime in on any of this, please feel free to unmute. I'm just going to try and give a quick kind of a high-level conversation here to get us started. This is prepared by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which you can see kind of a quick understanding and overview of what the emergency loans that are available to folks are. I'm going to post all of these. Did I go past this one? I'm going to post all of these links in the Slack, so you will have these all in a moment, so you don't need to jot down the URLs. And it talks about how you are eligible, if you are eligible for some of this, what the lenders will be looking for, which is here on the second page, the second bullet point, kind of this information and what they will be looking for and going through, and we'll be getting into more of that in the main room. Also, how much you can borrow. It's basically 2.5 times for the PPP, the payroll protection, 2.5 times your monthly payroll. And there's a relatively sophisticated calculation you have to do if you don't use ADP or GUST or someone like that to help you prepare it. If you do it yourself or use a firm, your accounting firm can also help you with that. And then how it will be forgiven. There is obviously, with the CARES Act and the PPP, the opportunity to have these forgiven, which I know for myself as a business owner is really intriguing about keeping people on payroll. It is a little bit like found money in a way of the government wanting to incent, trying to keep everyone on payroll and keep our businesses moving forward. So that's a fantastic resource. I'll also, go ahead, someone have a comment? All right, let me share one more set of screens with you here really quickly. Let me see if I can find this one. All right. So hopefully you're all seeing my screen here. Charlotte Eno is a fantastic resource for a whole listing of what resources are available. So if you're not, and these are what I'm going to do for a second is I'm going to go through like 4 or 5 of my favorite resource sites. So many people started doing resource lists. I think it became a little bit overwhelming. And so the opportunity to have a concise amount that you can look at and kind of the best. What I've decided, rather than trying to keep doing my own, is kind of curating or showing to you the ones that I like the most, and then have the opportunity where I can add value to them. So Charlotte Eno is one of the great resources, a local entrepreneur that you should be using if you're not. If you do have employees, the North Carolina Department of Commerce site, and I said I'll post all these links in a moment to you, has great information, resources about unemployment. If you have to go down that route regarding information for employers, information for individuals, federal unemployment system, that's $600 per week that folks will be eligible for, in addition to the North Carolina unemployment and the benefits of that. I'm sure that will get discussed in a couple of the chat rooms, particularly the breakout rooms, particularly the 401 room and the one with equity-backed companies, because they tend to have employees. The Employers Association, if you don't know it, is local here in Charlotte. They have great resources in terms of helping you understand what's going on from an impact on the HR side, and they've developed a specific set of coronavirus resources much more around the health side and then also the resources as it impacts employees. So less about the financing and more about how you can be a good team leader and founder. And I thought that was interesting because I hadn't seen a lot of people referencing that. Some of you on the Zoom here are EO members, but if you're not, there are a lot of good resources from EO Charlotte has put together their own list of resources for founders and entrepreneurs that we are going to make accessible. They have made accessible to everyone, so we'll put that in the chat here as well. Okay, and then let me go to the next one. Oops. Down just a little bit. ADP also has a great resource list, particularly again focusing from the personnel side, looking at all the different support for care and employees and what you can do as a founder, latest legislative review, understanding payroll and benefits, managing leaves of absence, how ADP is responding, that type of stuff. All right. So now what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and manage through these breakout rooms. And here's how we're going to do that. You all got a little practice. And then, yeah, and I think Kevin, thank you, Juan, for that. Is Kevin Madron on? Madron? How do you pronounce your last name, Kevin? Are you on?
Yeah, it's Madron. Yes, I'm on.
Madrid, thanks. I'm going to highlight you for a second. If you want to talk about it, then we'll do a breakout rooms, just a little bit, kind of an overview of the for I know. Tell that would be great.
Yeah, sure. My name's Kevin Madron. I'm with Foundry Commercial, and I was just going to give you a brief update, not necessarily on the CARES Act, because a lot of us have probably been inundated in our emails with updates on that, but just some things that I'm hearing in the last, call it 48 hours. As you know, there's been a tremendous response to the CARES program. It essentially provides loans for businesses up to 500 people or more. There's actually provisions if you have more than 500 employees. But the window opened up on Friday for businesses to apply. Essentially, the superhighway end of the Fed to get money was deadlocked. But over the last 48 hours, there's been a lot of free up in terms of allowing lenders a lot more flexibility in addressing the applications that they're getting. You know, I just read this morning, Bank of America had 138,000 applications in a matter of a couple of days. So if you're interested in it, the good news is contact your lender that you have a relationship with first and foremost. They can get you plugged in pretty quickly. The SBA has allowed lenders to use their own forms and documents, which has expedited the process, but I think you'll start seeing cash roll out to companies that have applied for the loan starting today and in the next few days. So that money will start flowing. I'm hearing that another $250 billion is being asked to fund into that. So I think the stimulus will likely be extended and go on out for a couple more months. So if you haven't already, or if you're looking for it for your own business or for other businesses, I'd encourage you to reach out first to your lender or your bank that you have a current relationship with. That seems to be the fastest and most expedited way to gain access to those funds.
Awesome, thank you for that. One of the questions I've heard a lot, here's one of the questions. Sorry, I'm just reading. So one of the questions was about 1099 contractors versus full-time employees, and for founders that have 1099 contractors versus just straight W-2 employees, how they get treated on that. I was wondering if one of the experts who are still in this room want to unmute and maybe tackle that real quick.
This is Elizabeth Boone. We have seen guidance from the SBA that has stated that independent contractors are not to be used for the purposes of determining payroll costs. And the reason being is that the independent contractors have the ability under the PPP loans to file on their own behalf. And so they are not allowing it to count as payroll costs at this time.
Got it. And if you have other questions, let's go ahead and put those in the chat if we can, please. One of the questions that comes up is the difference between EIDL and loans under the CARES Act, particularly the PPP. Does someone want to talk about the difference between the EIDL loans and the PPP loans that's part of the CARES Act? Paul, I know you're still there. Paul Foley, do you want to take that one, or maybe it looks like Brandon's still in this room. Maybe one of the two of you could take that if you know the difference between the EIDL and the PPP loans under the CARES Act.
Paul, do you want to go first, or you want me to wave top it?
I'll let you start on that, and then Rob Wall probably from my team would be the best to follow up.
Yeah, I think for small businesses, you just got to understand your counterparties are two different organizations. They both have the names as Small Business Administration, but essentially the way we've interpreted it is the EIDL, Emergency Disaster Loan, is actually the Small Business Administration trying to lend itself. There's different tools and terms. There's a great shortcut I think that the Commerce Department put out that lines up EIDL and PPP side by side. There's different terms and stuff. The larger dollar amount, the $349 billion plus the 250 that hopefully gets approved tomorrow on Friday, that is with the PPP. But there's a lot of technical aspects I'm sure, Rob, you can comment on in terms of what that means to a small business owner, the terms, conditions.
Right. Yeah. So the question was the difference between the EIDL and the PPP. Is that correct?
Correct.
Right. So the EIDL loans were if you want to look at it from a timeline thing, they were somewhat of a precursor to these PPP loans. The terms, the technical terms of them are different. Number one, there's no forgiveness on them. The interest rate was higher. It wasn't bad, and the term was longer. Whereas and so what the PPP is actually allowing is if you applied for an EIDL and you received some of the money, they're going to allow you to refinance that particular thing. But if you've already applied and been approved and funded, I think it eliminates your ability to utilize the PPP on those things. So yeah, they're two different. And as Brandon said, they are two different. They're two different paths going down. I mean, the SBA is administering the EIDL loans, and they're closer to what I would say is a more traditional SBA loan than what the PPP is, which is having the actual point of contact being the banks or the financial institutions making those loans. In short, in conclusion, in most cases, the PPP loan would be much more advantageous for most borrowers.
Yeah, primarily because it's forgivable, right? At least that would be.
And and keeping in mind, it's a short-term liquidity, and by short-term, obviously, it's an 8-week type thing, but it's a faster approval, I think, and it's a faster funding. But also because the interest rate is at 1%, and it's a 2-year term, and the first payments on it are deferred for 6 months.
Someone had asked, as a partnership LLC, can you apply for EIDL? There's not a restriction on that, correct? And then let's see if we have the points. One of the things, if you're wondering about breakout rooms, I'm just monitoring our Slack here too. I think we bit off more than we can chew on trying to get people into breakout rooms. So we're going to call them audible on the fly. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each breakout room. We're going to do it as one big room. Panelist who's here, and give them the floor for a couple minutes to at least get the highlight of what they were going to talk about in here, and then continue to put questions in the chat, please. So sorry about this, folks. It's new technology, and we're all trying to figure out the best way to build community and make this happen. And I think the breakout rooms were a bit ambitious on our part. David Stewart, I think you're still on. Could you take the floor for a minute and talk just at a high level about what you're going to talk about in your breakout room, please?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Dan. Thanks everybody for joining. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you're great.
Okay, great. So a couple things that I wanted to look at just as background. I'm part of our government affairs practice group. I split time between DC and Birmingham. And so one of the things in watching what's going on in DC that I think has been fairly remarkable is the speed with which Congress has acted so far with this. Given the kind of the logjam that we've seen for so long in Congress, they have now been able to get out 3 stimulus packages. The other thing that I would notice, kind of the size of the packages are pretty astounding. So the CARES Act was $2.2 trillion in direct funding with an additional $4 trillion in additional lending and other funding that's available. By comparison, the package that came out during the Great Recession was $831 billion. Kind of the key point in all this is just the first part of this. So as was alluded to earlier, they are trying to get additional funding for the small business, the PPP program, which was funded at $349 billion. Around $70 billion as of earlier today had already been subscribed. Right now, we are getting a little bit of different approaches. The Republicans wanted to do a standalone reauthorization or additional funding of that program at $250 billion. The Democrats have proposed a package which is at $500 billion, which includes the $250 billion, includes an additional $150 billion for states, as well as has another $100 billion in for hospitals and community health centers. We're waiting to see if they're going to resolve this. The previous bills that have been able to get through with fairly large majorities, and they frankly were trying to get this done without having to bring everybody back to DC, and we're waiting to see if they'll pull that off. Looking ahead, there will be a stimulus 4. I think what you'll see is building upon what's already in there, adding additional money for programs that have been underfunded, but then I think you'll start seeing additional priorities in there. So I think you must probably see an effort to put infrastructure in there. I think you'll also see things such as hazard pay for certain workers and other priorities of both parties. And so applaud you, all of y'all, for kind of figuring out what's in there. Would encourage you to kind of stay involved in the process because this thing is evolving, and there'll be plenty of opportunities to kind of weigh in with elected officials as they continue to shape the relief packages.
David, that's great. Thanks for sharing. If anyone has a particular question for David, he is based in DC. You are in DC, right?
I'm in Birmingham. I live in Birmingham, but split time between the two, although I'm in Birmingham now, so yeah.
Got it. Since we have a pretty big group here and we called an audible on our format here, if you have questions for David, please type them in to the Slack, or when you have questions, see if you can direct it to everyone who's going to speak here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of move down our list, and then we're going to do this all as one big group for a period of time. We'll start our Keg-Side chat at about 6:10, depending on the conversation here. So thanks for bearing with us. We have a lot of great people with a lot of great information. I want to make sure that they all get an opportunity to talk with us for just a minute. I think next, Brian Pope, Paul Foley, and Brandon Shelton, we're going to talk about kind of what founders need to know or investors need to know for equity-backed companies. Do one of you want to take the floor, a couple of you for a minute or two, and explain some of the nuances as that happens with equity-backed companies, please?
Hey, this is Rob Wall. I'll go ahead and do a little bit of an intro thing and talking about the PPP program. One of the things that in the private equity VC arena and one of the important things and the very first starting point for companies is taking a look at the affiliation rules, and these are the affiliation rules as set forth for the SBA. Because the PPP is a non-traditional SBA program, ordinarily in an SBA program, either the lender or the SBA will do the affiliation analysis. It's up to the actual borrower to do the affiliation analysis. So if you have a company that has venture capital investment in it, you need to consult. It's a hyper-technical, fairly factual, intensive test to make the determination as to whether or not concerns or entities are affiliates of each other, because the regulation said it's when one has control or has the power to control the other, or a third party controls or has the power to control both. And obviously, with venture capital and private equity coming into companies, that can quite often get very technical as far as even minority owners having control over boards, there being convertible securities or something like that. There can be related parties. It's a very it's a very factually intensive determination, and that has to be done first, because if you have this affiliation, it can cause the aggregation of the employee number to get you out of this quote defined small business thing. And you need to make a determination if you have to make a change in those legal documents. You need to do it before you apply, because especially in light of the rules as it pertains to options and equity, the SBA deems that those have been exercised at the time of the application. It's not a pending thing or anything like that. So it has a lot to do with control. So that's the basics of it from a venture capital standpoint, from an investor standpoint, and a startup company standpoint. So you definitely consult with your tax advisors, your legal advisors at the jumping off point on both sides of the deal.
That's awesome. Anyone else? And so I think if nothing else, because I know we don't have at the same time we would have if we all went into breakout rooms, there's obviously a ton of nuance in there. And if you have equity investors, getting with some smart people like the folks at Ackerman or others is going to be really important, because there's a lot of ways you get tripped up there. Paul or Brandon or Brian Pope, any of you else have comments you'd like to make regarding that, just at a high level? Or are you good?
Sure, Brian. Yeah, I'll listen. Yeah. I'll give you the fund manager standpoint. We're small, but we have 9 portfolio companies. They're all early stage. They all have equity investors. They all have months, not years of runway in the bank prior to the crisis. I think, as you can see, I can bring a lawyer onto this call and refute every single thing Rob Wall just said, right? So I actually agree everything he said. I'm just saying, but the SBA and Treasury, with the White House's support, gave up security for speed. It's a 2-page application to push out $349 billion plus another $250. They put the onus on you as the founder, plus your major investors, plus your board. They're going to come after you. You are self-certifying that you are impacted by this crisis. Not everybody is. Okay, so you got to have a moral check yourself. But the nuance, because you have elaborate, multiple funding rounds, and your every time you raise capital, your charter changes. I mean, so what we've encouraged all of our founders is, we have not told our 9 companies apply for it or not, but we've told all 9 companies investigate it, because I'm actually seeing between 2 of my companies with 2 different law firms, one's a regional law firm, one's a national law firm, they're having totally different interpretations of the rules. So you need to pull your board of directors, who are probably also on your board, your major investors who are also on your board, plus your lawyers, and you need to get them in writing what their interpretation is. Even if you've already applied, right? Last Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Chase's site went down twice. Wells Fargo abruptly stopped. Yeah, it doesn't matter. If you've already applied, no problem. Okay, but get some air cover for yourself in writing. So when it comes time, when the loan officer emails you, doesn't call you, but emails you saying, all right, we're depositing the funds in your bank account, you better have your ducks in a row. And the last thing I'll say is, what we've also heard from the National Venture Capital Association, which we've been in all those webinars and tutorials, is that the House of Representatives and the lot, I mean, the gentleman I was speaking earlier David could probably attest to this, but yes, money's going out the door really fast, but the scrutiny this money's going to come under is like nothing we've ever seen. So if you thought 2008-9 was sloppy, I'm just telling you, $600 billion going out the door in like 3 weeks, sloppily, and never before processes. you as a small business owner maybe ask questions 1, 2, 3 months, and definitely in July and August when you try to go get it forgiven, right? You're applying back to the bank saying, I actually want to convert it into a grant now. I'm just saying there's scrutiny coming from inspector generals, the bank itself. Remember, the bankers have told me that they don't want this loan at 1% sitting on their balance sheet. They don't like it. They're doing it because they're being told to do it. So don't just go, ooh, I can get myself two months of payroll, right? 2 months of runway. Great. And then I can have it forgiven. Yeah, I think you got to understand the intent to answer the question morally with you and your co-founders. But as it relates to exactly what Rob Wall just said, and Paul's been right with us because Ackerman is our counsel as well. Whew, every small business and nonprofits also apply. Every small business is different, and the rules are not super clear on affiliation and having equity investors. So just get your lawyers, like Dan said, get your smart people around you. Slow down enough to have a meeting, have a call, get things in writing, get as much information you can, and memorialize it so that 1, 2, 3 months from now, you can encapsulate the thinking and interpretations now versus somebody at the SBA changing their mind in August. So I'll be quiet there.
It broadly falls under the category of with 500 or 600 billion. There is no such thing as a free lunch, right? There'll always be some strings attached to it, and the strings could come back to bite you. I want to echo one of the things that Brandon said, which is for the entrepreneurs and founders online, there are a lot of people who are willing to help and a lot of good resources. This is not a time to deploy on your money. Other implications, we kind of jokingly say that, well, it's disruption for a lot of us. A lot of people are going to be very busy. The accounting firms, the law firms are on the line tonight to help kind of share some of their knowledge. I think are all working, if they weren't, they're all working 70, 80-hour weeks. So thank you all for being on with us. And I agree with that point, Brandon. This is the time for some expert advice. There's a lot of stuff in the chat, too, about the confusion that's still going on back and forth. Dave Reese said that he actually missed the call from his banker for his PPP loan while he's on the public house. So Mike's taking one for the team on that one. But a lot of confusion going on in the act. And then let's see. And Breakout 1-3 was.
Hey, Dan, real quick. Hey, Brian Pope, you're at Barings, right? You guys are big boy asset manager. What are you guys seeing, man? You guys invest in private equity funds and other funds. What are you seeing, Brian?
Yeah, I was gonna follow on top of you. Similar message. Look, like I've dealt with a couple handfuls of these so far, and each situation is certainly based on the business and based on the owners. And I'd say I've had two different types of conversations. One where, especially over the weekend, late Friday night, late Saturday night, and even Sunday night, differences of emails coming across of businesses that we've invested in who've said, hey, we filled out the application and we need this information. And we hop on the phone immediately and we hit the pause button. Because as Brandon has stated, the onus is on the applicant. The applicant is the one who takes the liability and has to attest and certify that they've completed it truthfully. And unfortunately, each situation is different and complicated enough where you have to slow down. Now, the second set of conversations I've had are ones where either folks on our board or part of management team of businesses, we've come together, we've created a mini task force. Someone from legal, someone from HR, someone from finance, and we're breaking down the CARES Act specific to that business. And everybody has marching orders to try to figure out what's best for that particular business. Unfortunately, for our investments, the PPP loans and the SBA affiliation rules make it incredibly complex and unfortunately, very unlikely that our investments will be eligible. I'd say on the minority equity investment positions, those require a little bit more scrutiny. I think as Brandon mentioned, folks like the National Venture Capital Association have put out some really good guidance on what types of negative the SBA considers as control. And they've actually gone deep into case law that's associated with the SBA hearings process. So, we've gone as far as looking at the underlying code that supports the SBA affiliation and looking at some of the case law. And, I think that's why there's so much confusion, because it does depend on the business, depends on the investor rights, and it also depends on legal interpretation of many historical facts that really have nothing to do with the language in the CARES Act itself.
Complicated stuff, to be sure. I think the message is, for if you are an equity-backed business, the rules are going to be different and more complicated. If you are bootstrapped, if you've self-funded, it makes it a lot easier. There's actually, right after this, we're jumping into many of us here are jumping into a Charlotte Angel Fund meeting, and I'm sure this conversation is going to come up, because if companies have taken, even over the next couple of months, have taken PPP money or other money, it's going to be part of the checklist, I think, on due diligence over the next couple of months. I'm going to, again, kind of pivoting here, I want to make sure we give a little bit of airtime for all the really talented people we had on tonight. And again, my apologies, we couldn't get the breakout rooms working the way we wanted to. Breakout room 3 was going to be Allie Williams, who's a tax principal at CLA, and then Elizabeth Boone, who's a partner at Bradley Law. Allie or Elizabeth, I know you're going to go into a little bit more advanced conversation, so I'm not sure if you had points of material you wanted to cover, or you're just going to field questions. But would either of you like to take the floor for a moment here and add to the conversation?
Hey, this is Elizabeth Boone. I think that the biggest thing that I wanted to convey is that the feedback from the Small Business Administration is actually happening as we speak. It's happening every day. And on treasury.gov, they're doing a good job of posting the different additions to the frequently asked questions, giving the interim final rules, both for affiliation and for the PPP in general. And that's a really good resource. But the biggest thing is that to make sure to check those, because the guidance is coming out as we speak. On top of that, they did actually put in the frequently asked questions that if you rely on the frequently asked questions or the interim final rule, that if you act in reliance upon that, then you'll be held to be in compliance with the PPP. And that statement is actually under the frequently asked questions. So that gives you a little bit of a comfort zone to operate within.
Yeah, that's really helpful to know. Thank you. I know I just got a notice at noon that my banking partner needs me to fill out the application for the 3rd time again, and all the other previous stuff I had submitted since last Friday is null and void. So same information and see how this works out. So I think everyone's having to try and be a little patient. Allie, are you still with us? And do you want to tell everyone who you are and kind of your thoughts on this? Allie, are you there? We can't hear you if you're speaking. All right, I'm going to move us along then. And then in breakout room 4 was going to be David, who's a partner with Bradley's, talking specific about 401k loans, IRA withdrawals, and other components like that. David, would you like to take the floor here for a moment?
Sure. So under the CARES Act, there are really just a couple of provisions relating to retirement plans. They're fairly significant. One is a provision that permits a penalty-free distribution from your 401k plan, applies to 403b plans and IRAs as well, of up to $100,000. You do have to be a qualified participant. That's actually somewhat broad. It includes not only individuals who have the COVID-19 virus or care for someone, but also people who have, basically their work has been adversely affected such that they would need the distribution. And the distribution is just certified by the individual. There's very little administration required, and I think a general certification works. What's good about this distribution, is we really don't want to have to take out money from retirement plans, is that it can be repaid within a 3-year period. The money then goes back into your plan and can be used for savings. And this contrasts with hardship distributions that plans may have that are much more limited. And the other provision in the Act is a expansion of loans. If your plan allows for a loan, currently you're limited to the lesser of 50% of your vested balance or $50,000. The Act increases the amount to $100,000 or lesser of $100,000 or 100% of your vested balance. You again do have to be a qualified individual, but it's a much larger amount. Loan payments are now delayed for 1 year. Your loan then gets re-amortized. So those are the two big ones. There's also a delay of required minimum distributions for those individuals that reached 70 and a half and have to take distributions. But I would just encourage you to work with your retirement plan record keeper, administrator, if you're interested, because I think both of those are some very helpful changes to allow people to use money when they're in distress and don't otherwise have it available.
David, are you finding folks are doing that mainly on personal needs, or are you finding entrepreneurs using that as a funding source? Because that could be a potentially dangerous funding source for a business, right?
Well, I mean, it is your retirement plan, and you'd have to be a qualified individual. But if you were otherwise a qualified individual and you were able to take the money out, there's nothing that polices how you then use that money. So I suppose it is possible that some people might say, in a difficult situation, I'm just going to take that $100,000 out if I'm eligible, and then use that, for other purposes.
Yeah. And I also have to ask you this, just because you are the one dude in a suit and tie still, are you actually seeing clients, or you wanted to make sure that we knew you were the lawyer on the line?
I just wanted you to make sure you know the lawyer. I didn't know the rules, so my partner Bruce Ely's on the beach, so I think he's got the best situation. And so qualified individuals, just real quickly again, I was looking at the definition. You're either diagnosed with the virus, a spouse or dependent is diagnosed, or you experience adverse financial consequences as a result of being quarantined, furloughed, laid off, hours reduced, unable to work, closing or reduced hours of business. So it's really broad. So the bottom line is you could probably use it for other purposes if you meet the definition.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you for being here with us tonight. And Bruce was going to be, or is our last kind of speaker. Then we'll jump back to Allie here in a second, maybe for closing comments. But Bruce, I know you have a couple of slides. We only have a couple minutes, but I wanted to give you the airtime.
Yeah. Oh, the slides showing now, Dan?
Yeah, they are. Thank you.
Okay. We borrowed these from last week. We had 850 people signed up for this seminar last week. So,
wow.
Popular issue. I wanted to talk about 3 tax credits and 1 deferral. And the best thing you can hear from me tonight is the fact that these slides are available. We also have newsletters that back up each one of these credits and deferrals. So if you have any questions after reviewing the slides, email me on the cover page there, and I'll be happy to send you newsletters, a link to our firm's COVID-19 website. I call it the group of workaholic lawyers who don't have enough things to do. It seems to be cranking out newsletters every hour or so on these various issues. So I commend that website to your reading. But there are 2 credits enacted by the Families First Act in mid-March that deal with the fact that you have an employee who's had to leave. You want to keep them on a roll. You cover 2 weeks of wages, basically, because of either a quarantine order, or they're sick, their wife, the child is sick, or the child care has fallen through and they've got to stay. My secretary has that situation now. That's the child care tax credit. The first one is paid sick leave credit. It's pretty juicy. It's $511 per day credit. Employees, quarantine, whatever. Capped at $5,110 per employee per quarter. So it's a pretty good incentive. Child care credit's a bit smaller. The one that just popped out of the CARES Act is called the Employee Retention Tax Credit. I'm going to give you an example on slide 6 to explain how this works. But it can be pretty juicy. Matter of fact, let's go to the example. I calculated, say you have 50 employees in Charlotte, and you're paying obviously more than $10,000 a year in wages. you get a $250,000 refundable tax credit for that course. Now that doesn't go in ad infinitum. It's basically squeezed into 3 quarters this year, starting April 1st. But the only downside is it's only creditable against the employer's share of FICA, and then everything else has to be refunded, which the IRS has sworn on the blood oath will be done quite quickly. And I did want to point out that eligible employers also include 501c3 entities. I've had several churches approach us, but they don't include independent contractors. I'm warning you about that. The last thing is the deferral. This is a no-brainer, I think, Dave. Anybody can do this, any size employer. You simply just don't pay half of your or share of your taxes when they come due. They're due 1/2 into 2021, and 1/2 into 2022 interest-free. So I've seen more employers take advantage of this one provision than anything else in the CARES Act, other than everybody would like to qualify for PPP. But warning, the reason I like EIDL, although it's not a deferral or forgiveness, is if you're borrowing money to the PPP, several of these credits are not available to you. So it's a choice you have to make in applying for the Paycheck Protection Act. So, Dan, back to you.
Great, thank you very much for that, and I appreciate your flexibility for all of our panelists. Allie, are you? Can you unmute now? And you want to give it a shot again? And can you, if you want to maybe give us some wrap up or closing comments? We had a lot of great experts, and I apologize that we weren't able to give you the in-depth airtime we were kind of hoping to. But in some ways, it worked out interesting because I think we covered a lot of territory and really specific issues, and maybe have at least lifted up the rock for people to think about the issues. Allie, you want to take a shot as well?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me this time?
Yeah, perfect.
Oh, awesome. Sorry about that earlier. I guess I had my headphones in and it wasn't working. We're all having technology challenges today. But appreciate it. I don't want to repeat anything that everyone's already gone through. I thought there was a lot of great information. Just a couple other high-level things in the CARES Act that I don't think we've fully talked about are really opportunities around amending tax returns. So opportunities to take NOLs from prior years, so 2018 and 2019, opportunities to carry those back now 5 years. A lot of what I'm hearing from my clients is, oh, I was having a great year the past few years. I'm not actually needing to carry back any losses, but they're concerned about 2020. So the thought is they'll probably have a loss for 2020, so we can go back later on, carry those losses back and get some cash back. So not as immediate as the PPP or the EIDL. So I think it's losing kind of the news. It's not a highlight on the news right now because it's more of a future plan, but something to think about if you're having a tough year in 2020. There will be hopefully opportunities in the future. And then also the interest expense limitations. So I'm sure we could have some companies on here that are highly leveraged. If you're having some expense limitation on your interest income or interest expense, they did raise that limit from 30% to 50%. So stuff to think about on returns, just outside of all of this immediate action that's being needed on PPP and EIDL, but there's other great provisions in there that people can benefit from. So just don't forget that there's a lot to that 880-page document.
Yep. It is, I think we, if nothing else, help people understand that the quick sound bites they see is not the depth of this across the board. These issues that now that people are past the initial shock, they're going to have to start digging in. And I have to ask you, is that a backdrop or is that your actual apartment?
This is my actual office.
That is really nice. It looks like a backdrop.
That's not fair.
I really would just like to be a decorator. It's my second calling.
You win the prize on that one. If we're doing
oh man, I didn't have a dog, but.
Well, that's great. I'm going to ask all of you. We'll get out to all of our panelists one-on-one privately to ask this question because we weren't able to do this in depth. We do have everyone's email from registration from coming in the room. If you wouldn't mind, we might share a resource list out to everyone who's here tonight, kind of with your name, firm. If they need to reach out for you, if they want to hire you, they just want to get some discussion. That might, I think, help get some the background for all of you on all that. And apologies that we weren't able to get more of that in tonight. So, so with that, we're going to transition yet one more time, and I'm going to go back to this. And again, apologies to our host or our guest tonight for our Keg-Side chat. As you know, those of you who've been on before, we almost always do a speaker in a Keg-Side chat. and Todd, we're starting a little bit later than we had hoped to do. But I'm really thrilled that you're able to be here with us tonight. We always do these Packard Place Public Houses since we've gone virtual anyways, in a couple different segments, something fun and social up front, very light, some meat on topics and presentation, then trying to keep true to what we've been doing in the public house, which are the Keg-Side chats. So hopefully everyone still has a little bit of beer. I saved a little bit of beer for you, Todd. I'm not completely empty already. And the opportunity to talk about their journey and their story. And so Todd, I have you kind of up on the screen in the background that we have there, but I might just say welcome and thank you for being with us tonight.
Yeah, thank you. I don't typically drink that often, so starting at 4:30. This could be an interesting 20 minutes.
Yeah, I've been pounding for 2 hours. I'm not ready to go, man.
Yes.
Well, first of all, I don't want to assume that everyone, although I say this to everyone.
By the way, I'll talk about this, but we got to see Feeding America is a great.
Absolutely will. And I normally say to all my guests, don't assume that everyone at the public house knows who you are. In your case, I think that's incorrect. I think everyone in Charlotte may know who you are. But just in case we get some people from all over, tell us who you are and what your business is. That'd be great.
Sure. I'm the Todd Buelow, co-founder of Dual Boot Partners. We build great software as our tagline, but we hope to be more than that to a lot of our clients by giving business advice. All of us that are in the company have founded companies, have been through the ups and downs. For me personally right now, my wife and I founded a company called Buelow, which is retail, which is imploding. And with Dual Boot, we're actually doing fairly well right now. And it's been interesting because we have some clients that are not doing great and others that are exploding. So it's been a kind of a tale of two cities on building this company.
Yeah, it has been an interesting time. How did you decide to do this? Because you were with another development shop here in Charlotte. Talk about the decision to go do your own thing, the risk of it, what the variables were, what made you decide to go from employee or maybe joining someone else's firm versus doing your own shop?
So I've pretty much always been involved in startups. Usually the first 2 to 3 employees involved. Helped start a supply chain software company here in '99. And during that moment, we had a really hard time finding developers here in Charlotte. There was a good core, but it's a similar environment to what it is now. You could find 1 or 2 developers, but then after that, it was kind of hard to really get people to come and kind of tie into an idea of a startup. And when we sold to a company in Dallas, Texas, they did development all around the world. And that was kind of eye-opening to me because what I realized is there's talent all around the world. And so why not take advantage of that? So when we started our second company, it was a company called Cloud Logistics. And what we did was a little different model in that we ended up doing sales and marketing, biz dev, CTO, product management here in the States, but then actually opening an office in Russia from contacts that we had made in the past. And the model worked out really well. So much so that, Dan, to your question, I ended up helping start another services company, but the services company was really just a spin-off out of Cloud Logistics to help companies. But I had met a gentleman named Ben Gilman, who I think many of you might know. Ben is also one of the co-founders of Pet Screening. He's also helped found a company called Learn out of Raleigh and another company, Real Recruit, here in town. And he was running into a lot of challenges of not being able to find enough development talent. So he, myself, and another guy, Daniel De La Cruz, kind of said, hey, let's try to do this on ourselves and by ourselves and break off. Yeah. And so we ended up starting Dual Boot, and it's been over 2 years now. And if you can believe it, we're up to 80 people now and growing.
Fantastic growth. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about 0 or founders to 80 people in 2 years. What have those growth challenges been like? What's been the hardest thing about that growth?
I mean, I think the interesting thing for me when I started doing startups at 24, 25, I'd always say, I don't understand why people won't invest in younger people. And now I kind of, as I'm older, you really do realize that your network becomes a great power for you. So even in starting our company, we had already built a network and trust with a lot of people already, including people to sell to, but also people that had worked with us in the past that wanted to continue kind of executing for us. So that really helped us kind of accelerate the growth of our company. And I think, again, that just goes by time. And if I was talking to 25, 26-year-old Todd, 25 or 26-year-old Todd would have said, "You're full of crap." But now that I'm, getting up there in years,
Can the rest of us still say you're full of crap, or is that just you?
Well, I try not to be. I'm not, 90% of all truths are lies, as I think what William Bissett says. So.
Those 80 people, best leadership mantra, best leadership piece of advice. What do you try and do as a leader? What's always on the front of your mind when you deal with your team and your people?
Yeah, I mean, when you get to a size like that, I think you need to make sure you empower the people around you so that they can start leading different groups. Also, one of the things that we've done with a size group like that is we really break down things into kind of, I've been a big fan of the book Traction. If you guys have read that.
Yeah.
And then also, there's another book by, oh gosh, what's the guy? He's out of Austin. He runs the Techstars, Selling Faster. He's on Maggie's board. But anyways, the biggest thing is, I think, breaking it down into bite-sized chunks that you can, as a team, can get together with. Like trying to do these year-long goals as a startup, great, idea, but 90-day objectives and breaking them down and measuring them are the key to growth. And then empowering those employees to make them feel empowered to make changes along the way is key as well.
How do you make them? Let's drill down on that for a second. How do you make them feel empowered? What is it? I mean, a lot of people say that, but how do you actualize that?
Well, first of all, we do daily stand-ups and encourage them to speak up during that process. The second thing I've learned is not to shun off an idea right away. I think when I was younger, I was quick to kind of like, no, I'm right, you're wrong. And I've learned over time that that's not necessarily right. So when you hear someone suggest something, think about it. And then, I have a group of maybe 4 or 5 people that I can call at any time and say, what do you think about this idea? They give it feedback, and then, take it in Excel and let one of your people run. Also, I'm a big fan of kind of 30 to 60 to 90 day kind of test periods of things. I don't know if a concept's going to work or not, but it's not going to kill you to try something for 30 to 60 days to see what's happening and see the results. I mean, we've done everything. We've done everything from a billboard on 77. We've done Google AdWords, LinkedIn ads. We've invested in PE and VC companies. We've done sponsorships at events, and have all of them winners? No, but we've learned it every step of the way. So now the cool thing about that, when you work with us, is I can also give you, and we can give you that advice of like, hey, here's what worked for us, and some ideas around that process.
Yeah. Talk about funding. Did you guys raise money to get Doable off the ground? Did you bring investors in afterwards? You decide to fund it all yourself, and why?
No, we did not. Myself, Dan, and Ben, we all invested our own money. Service is a little different than a product, because for services, you should almost be making a profit from day one. So it wasn't as hard. My wife's business, Bellatuno, her and I put in $6,000, and now it's a multi-million-dollar company. So some of the things I've learned along the process is, and I think, Dan, you've mentioned this before, like for Bellatuno, our first website that we built, I ended up going and doing landscaping for my friend, putting down all his grass seed in exchange for an e-commerce site. So there's ways to be creative without spending money,
yeah.
And getting things done.
Yeah. And I know we're here to talk about you tonight, not Michelle, although she's a wonderful person. But Jasmine did put in on the Slack or in the chat bot there for everyone, Michelle, Todd's wife's Packard Place Public House from earlier. And just to talk about her for a hot second, she was on, did you make it on Good Morning America on Saturday? What was the scoop?
Yeah, so we made it on it's a program called Deals and Steals, and in that session they were highlighting companies that give back. So we were on it, and then she was on the Instagram feed as well. So for those that don't know, Bellatuno is a baby and children's accessories company, and we started that company when her brother passed away unfortunately from a drug and alcohol addiction. And she wanted at the time, at the time wanted to finish, her brother was a doctorate student at University of Montana, and she wanted to finish a research project he was doing. So we just thought, what's a way we can do that? My wife ended up reinventing how pacifier clips are done. And in 2 months, she had enough money to pay off his research project. And then from there, we just have been a company that's intent on giving back. So, right now, starting in 2014, for every product we sell, we buy a meal for a child. And since we started that, we've done 4 million meals. So that's where she's getting a lot of attention, is around that side of it. So
that will happen if you
through a partner with Feeding America.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you feed 4 million people, that will definitely do it. Is there anything else? You have the shirt on. Anything else about Feeding America you wanted to talk about? I'll give you that opportunity.
Yeah, so Feeding America is the one that supplies, like here in Charlotte, the Second Harvest Food Bank. So they're the support arm of them. So if you support Feeding America, you're in all intents supporting the food banks around the world. There's other ones called Global Food Bank that we work with as well. They're amazing programs that we've been supporting for years. And I don't know if you guys, I think on Buelow, we posted a video of the long lines at food banks right now. They need help more than ever right now. But even locally, there's places like the Charlotte Rescue Mission that I'm on the board for, which is a drug and alcohol rehabilitation facility. They're in desperate need of sanitizing stuff. So can you imagine 150 men and 120 women living together at different locations? The real concern of this virus spreading is very real in their eyes, in anyone's eyes.
And not to digress too much into that, but we all know, if you're reading it all, the most vulnerable citizens in our country and around the world are the ones that are impacted disproportionately the hardest. And I think it's a really good thing for us to keep in mind. I think if you're on this Zoom call, odds are you're probably doing okay in the part of the population that has the ability to impact by leading, by giving back, and thinking about whether it's your employees or the community, thinking about others. So Todd, I think it's a really timely opportunity to have you on.
Well, and there's another program in town called Running Works. They provide housing to homeless, but they use running as kind of a catalyst to build that bridge. They're getting crushed right now because they actually find houses. The people that they find houses for are actually paying for the houses and the rent. But a lot of those people have lost jobs already. So programs like that exist in Charlotte. So if you're fortunate to have dollars right now, those are amazing programs where you can actually pay for someone's mortgage for a month. That is trying to get their feet off the ground. And things like this,
And if you want to, Todd, if you want to include any links to things you want to see, we talked about sending out kind of a Packard Place Public House follow-up, especially with all the resources we had on earlier. So if you want to send us a couple links, we'll make sure we'll push that out to everyone in the follow-up and store distribution. Let's go a little more lighthearted for just a little bit here. We were talking about older Todd and younger Todd a little while ago. Talk to me about younger Todd in football. You actually played for one of our rival schools, somebody named Penn State.
Well, so yeah, I mean, played is a stretch. So my freshman year I walked on, and that was the year we actually went undefeated. But I played the spring season, and then they decided that fifth string punter was not needed that much further. So I ended up moving to rugby after that, which
you were not actually the fifth string punter. I want to see a roster and depth chart.
No, on the spring team, I told you, there's no roster. In the spring, there is no roster. There's like, there's the roster and then the spring roster. So
all right, Bill wants to know what position in rugby though. Let's talk about your rugby.
I was a flanker. And in the years I was at Penn State, we finished 3rd, 2nd, and 4th in the nation. And every year we lost to Cal Berkeley.
Well, let's clarify. So you actually played on this team, right?
I actually played on that team. Yes. And ironically, the walk-on coach for Penn State my freshman year was a guy named Greg Schiano, who's now the head coach of Rutgers.
Nice. We have a whole rugby chat going on here on the side. We might have to do a rugby public house and
all right,
all the rugby folks in. I won't know what the hell's going on, but it'll be fun. One of the questions I love, and by the way, if you're hanging in there with us, that's awesome. We will get you out at 6:30 as promised, even with all our switches around here. One of the questions I love to ask people, Todd, is what piece of advice do you give? Do you hear entrepreneurs being given all the time that you disagree with? So what's that?
Well, I've got 2.
All right, go for it.
I've got many, but After beers, I've got 2 now.
Fantastic.
The first thing is I hate when I hear people say you have to have your own development team. It drives me bananas because I built Cloud Logistics. We built and we sold for a 10x multiple on our revenue without our own development team. I do think you need people that are product owners in place. So it's like similar to building a house. You hire a general contractor, but that general contractor doesn't have on staff the person that's doing the painting, electricity, and the wall. So that advice drives me crazy because right now it's so hard to find development talent. You're paying a premium for that development talent, and often cases, if you hire them, you're giving up a lot of equity. If your idea doesn't work out, you're keeping them on your payroll too long. So that's one area that I'm very passionate about, that I think a lot of investors push too hard on that. Because ironically, if you go and hire that team and then you go ask for money, they don't say, well, why do you need more money? Well, you told me to hire a development team. Their first question is going to be, what about your sales? Are you increasing your sales? And so that's one piece of advice. Actually, I've got 3. I'm lying. The second one is, and I made this mistake on our first company, we focused too much on our product. You really need to be focusing on your sales and marketing. The best product doesn't often always win. So I'm big, and you'll notice that with Dual Boot, that we seem to be everywhere, and we have an amazing product. I should say that. So we're very good at that. But I realize if no one knows about you, no one's going to actually potentially give you the opportunity, even though you might have the best product that's out there. The third is, we as entrepreneurs are extremely risky. I personally think it's great to be risky, but I'm also a believer in having no debt. So in the last year, against everyone that I heard told me, don't pay off your house. You're an idiot to pay off your house. You have a 4% loan on your house right now. I ended up paying off our house. And I'm so thankful that I did that now, because without debt, now there's a tremendous amount of opportunities that are happening that I couldn't have done if I were to have debt. So I'm a big believer, if I'm going to take risk on my business side, personal side, I'm a big believer in little to no debt. Yeah. I know that's probably against what a lot of people think, but it's something I've lived by. And then for my wife and I, we've always lived on one salary. So when her brother passed away, she was able to quit the job that she was doing, and we were able to start Bella Tuno. You know, were we able to go maybe on as nice a vacation? No, but we were able to do things and start businesses because we were not relying on 2 salaries.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate that. And part of the value of doing the public houses and asking different entrepreneurs is you get different perspectives. And I think one of the things I've learned, having talked to a lot of folks, there is no one right path, right? Hopefully there's a right path for you that works for it, and seeing different styles of people, different styles of leader, different philosophies make it is always exciting.
Yeah, and Dan, you're right. And that's the other thing. There's not my opinion is my opinion, right? But there's certain instances where debt may be good for people. That's the other thing you got to be careful who you're getting advice from, because we all have come up from different backgrounds. You know, I for one have seen a lot of things on my side personally that there's a reason that I'm really anti-debt. Other people don't come up with those upbringings, and they've seen other sides of it. So
yeah, you know, we tell our founders in our program is, when you start getting enough advice where you get conflicting advice, that probably means you've gotten enough, and then you need to make the decision as the founder, because you live with the consequence of that, right? Good or bad.
Yeah. Can you sleep at night? Yeah.
Well, let me do this. I'm going to wrap us up because I promised to get everyone in on time and out on time, and it is 6:30. And apologize that our schedule got a little shifted here. It's one of the things you all are very gracious and accommodating about. It just changes with this new world, right? Rolling with the punches. But I do think we got a lot of good information in on that, and we had a really nice conversation with Todd. Maybe we'll have you come back as a husband and wife team in a couple of months, and we can have both of you on, and when we're back in person, and the opportunity to do a little more. We can give Todd a kind of the virtual Zoom round of applause, even though he can't hear him. It's always good to give him a round of applause.
Hey,
I really appreciate you being on.
Dan, one last thing, and I mean this. Yeah. If you guys need any help on your business outside of technology, we'd love to help you. Please reach out to myself, Michelle that's on our team, Barrett. we're here. I'm here. I like to help people, even if it's like I'll run the nonprofit. I'm actively involved in the nonprofit side. I've probably met with 100 executive directors on the nonprofit. Please, please, please reach out, either on LinkedIn or email, and I will do my best to help steer you to the correct person.
Todd has always been a great role model in our community for being willing to help people, give some time, and it's great to have folks like you in our community, because it makes other people want to do that as well. And there is, we talked about Charlotte, there is a list of people who are doing office hours that you can access there as well. There's lots of good resources out there during this time, folks. Don't think you have to go through this alone, whether it's the business side, the finance side, the mental health side. There are lots of good resources. Encourage you all to take advantage of those, and we will get through this. Although there'll be some bumps, we will all get through it. We do this every week. We'd love for you to come back. We'd love for you to bring people with you. Continue to make this a growing community event, and appreciate you all being here. And hopefully you have a good rest of the day. See you later.